Hey everyone, Urban Fish Keeper here. And in today's video, I'm going to just go over something that I've already done, which is the betta breeding. And in today's video, I want to, in particular, go over the breeding the bettas in tubs. And an experiment that I've tried around breeding them in tubs, and the reveals and what comes out of this tub today, you seeing it with me for the first time. I haven't caught any fish out of this tub. When I feed, I move this slightly forward, put in food, pull it back, and that's it. And I've left that for about 12 weeks now. So what I want to do is I want to talk about the breeding in tubs. And I've seen a fair amount on the internet of late around betta breeding and people losing a lot of fry or having difficulty, and then raising the fry, lots of losses, that kind of thing. And then I've seen comments about people talking about siphoning out the food at the bottom and so forth. And I thought, what I'll do is I'll share with you how I've done the betta breeding in tubs, what size tubs I use, and just go into a little bit more detail around it, and then also just talk a little bit about the heating. If you need to heat. I'm fortunate at this stage, I still don't need to heat any of my betta tubs or my betta tanks for that matter, because it stays warm enough in this room. Right, so before we get started, also I want to say a big thank you to all the new subscribers. Thank you to the existing subscribers. I really appreciate you subscribing to this channel. Thanks a lot for the questions. Some really good questions coming through. I've answered them individually in the comments under each video. And thanks a lot to those that have reached out as well for an email address to send me longer questions. And I'll be responding to all of those as well. All right, so once again, thank you to the subscribers and thank you to everyone that watches this channel. I do appreciate it. All right, so let's get started. First of all, the tubs that I use for breeding. Now, a lot of people use big tubs, deep tubs, clear tubs, whatever. I prefer to use these kind of tubs. I get them from IKEA. They come in green, yellow, and I think some other colors as well. The ones that I use is either the yellow or the green one. From a sizing point of view, and I thought let's just measure them as well so I can share with you exactly what the size of the tub is. So across, the tub is 30 centimeters. Lengthwise, it is about 41 centimeters, 41 and a half centimeters. And the depth is not going to be a lot. And it's 10 centimeters to the top rim. All right, so that's the size of the tub that I use. Now, the reason I use shallow tubs is, one is when the fry are around and I start adding food, I don't want them to have to struggle too much swimming through a very deep water column trying to find the food. The other thing as well is when I spawn in these tubs, I prefer the male not to have to work too hard to travel up and down a water column collecting fry or eggs to put back in the bubble nest. Now, what I have found is to make this method really successful in spawning them in the tub and then being able to raise the fry to quite a late age in the tub, is that the tub needs to be well matured before I use it. And when I say well matured, I mean for weeks before you decide to start spawning, get the tub ready. Put plants in it. I put in almond leaves. So almond leaves and plants is what goes in these tubs, and it goes on a shelf that has gets the lighting like all the other aquariums. So whatever, 8 to 12 hours a day, and that's it. And I just leave that. Now, what happens in that time is that you will get bacteria start forming in that container. You'll get infusoria infusoria in that container, which is really good for that first food for the fry initially. So I leave that for, weeks if I can. I've got a tub on my shelf that's standing, that I can use, that's been standing ready for probably 12 weeks, if not longer. When it comes to, and in my how to breed bettas video that I've done previously, when it comes to spawning in these tubs, what I do is I put the male in, I provide him either with just some bubble, the bubble wrap stuff, or a piece of polystyrene on top of the water, or a new almond leaf on the top of the water. And I normally put it on the top of the plants, and I've got floating plants in here, and I'll show you that now. And I then put the male in, and I leave him in the tub for a while to get familiar with it and effectively make it his territory. I then add the female. I just take a plastic little cup, something similar in size to this glass, and I put the female in that, floating in the tub with the male. The male will then shortly start building a nest. I only release the female once he has a fully formed nest. If he hasn't created a bubble nest after a period of time, I will either change the female, or I'll change the male. Or if I have any other males that I'm breeding with at the moment that have created a nest, I might take a teaspoon and take some of the bubbles from the other male's nest and put that in with a male that hasn't started laying. A lot of the time that will trigger and get that male to start creating the bubble nest. Once I've released the female, they go through the normal process, where there's a bit of dancing and a bit of showing off and all the rest of it, and eventually the female will follow the male under the nest and spawning will take place. Once spawning has taken place, and because you can't really see what's happening in these containers, and I struggle to see betta fry and betta eggs at the best of time, what I do is I normally rely on the fact that the female is on the furthest corner of the part of the container. She's not swimming towards the nest anymore, and the male, all his attention is under the nest. When I see that kind of behavior, in my opinion, then the spawning has taken place, and I then remove the female. I leave the male with the eggs until they hatch, and once I see, and I keep an eye on it, and if I'm using the bubble wrap, maybe occasionally I can see little black dots, but a lot of the time I can't see anything. What I occasionally do is, after about 36 hours after the eggs have been laid, I put my finger on the bubble wrap and just move it slightly, and if I see one or two little things dashing, then I know that they're free swimming, and at that stage I remove the male. Once the male has been removed, it's now a question of the fry, and the food for the fry in those first couple of days, that first week or so, is really critical, because I think that's where a lot of people lose fry. Now, for me, Infusoria is the go when it comes to food for betta fry when they become free swimming. Now, I know some people say, you can feed newly hatched brine shrimp and all the rest of it. Yeah, you probably could, but in my opinion, that's not the go, and that's not the way it should be done. Now, because this tub had been standing for weeks before I used it, there will be a fair amount of Infusoria and little bugs and things in this water, which will help them. At the same time, I will start feeding Infusoria, and as you all may know, Infusoria is my kryptonite and I struggle with it. But I seem to have got to a solution on that one, and it's thanks to one of our subscribers who sent me a link. And unfortunately, I can't remember the person who did it, but it's not mine. I watched the video, and what the person was using was just a sponge filter out of one of your aquariums. Use that water and then aquarium water, but the food source was this. And what it is, it's just turnip that I've cut into little pieces and dried in the oven. And I just dry it in the oven for a few hours until it's nice and dry, you can hear. and I pop 1 or 2 pieces of that into the jar for the infusoria, and that seems, I've had a fair amount of success using that method. So what I do then is I feed the infusoria, combine that after about a week or so, or even initially, depending on what the fry look like, and if I can see them around, combine that with some vinegar eel, probably, you know, maybe a little bit later. Once you can start seeing them dart around, you know, you start moving on to your micro worm and then onto your newly hatched brine shrimp. But I will say, make sure, you know, if you want to have success in tubs and give the fry the best possible opportunity, go with a well-established tub, well in advance, that you know it's full of little bugs and things in the water, and that'll give that fry that kickstart initially. I see far too many people breeding in tubs where it just looks clinical. The tub is clean, you know, the water is clean other than the tannin from an Indian almond leaf. And when those fry are born, they've got nothing. There's nothing in that water for them to start nibbling on or anything. So my recommendation is really get this tub ready well in advance. Plants, almond leaf, let it stand under light, and let it just mature. You'll get bacteria and everything else growing in it, which is really good. For me, effectively, the plants and that become the filtration as well in the system. All right, let's go through some heating options. Now, if you need to heat your tubs, there's obviously various ways you can do it. Now, the one is you can have a little heater in the tub if you're only using one tub. But if you've got, let's say we take this table is your shelf and you want to heat multiple tubs. Now, for me, there's 2 options. The one option is using this product. And this is called Flex Watt. And anybody that keeps reptiles or has kept reptiles will know this product. It's Flex Watt tape. And what it is, it's a thin heating tape. Let me just open it up. Right. And that's what it looks like. Okay. And what you then do is you lay that down on the table, or on whatever you're using, lay it down on your shelf. Okay, you'd lay it down on your shelf in the middle somewhere, and you then place your tubs on top of that. So that's the one method for heating. And the thing with Flex Watt is, I like Flex Watt as a product and I use it for my reptiles. The challenge at the moment is that we can't get, there doesn't seem to be any Flex Watt available at the moment in Australia, and there hasn't been for a while. And that's probably, I'm assuming, due to COVID and items not being imported. But internationally, I know in the US you can get Flex Watt easily. In Canada, it should be the same thing. You can get Flex Watt if you need it. The other option is to use a heating cable. And this is what the heating cables look like. Now, this particular one is a heating cable from Aqua One, and it's the 7.5 meter one, and I think it's about 65 watts. Now, the reason I like using the Aqua One heating cable on any projects that I do is that it's designed also for humidity, because you can use it in reptile enclosures and so forth. So that's the other option. What I would recommend though, if you want to use, excuse me, a heating cable, is again the same thing. You know, on the shelf that you're using, you lay the cable down and then the containers go on top of it. What I would do though is I would get some 6mm MDF, and I've just grabbed 2 small pieces just to show you what I mean. And you get 6mm MDF, which is the same size as your shelf, and you cut that in half lengthways of the shelf. And then in that cut that you've created, you'd put the 6mm MDF on either side, and you'd put the heating cable in between. So if I can just show you like this, if that's the heating cable, you've got your 2 pieces of MDF, right? And it fits in between like that. Okay, and what that means is that when you put the container down on it, it's nice and nice and flat. And you can put your container on top of the MDF. So if you want to use the cable method, piece of MDF on your shelf, cut it down the middle, run the cable in between where you've cut it, push the MDF against each other and put the tubs back on that. And that works quite well. If you need additional, if it's not giving you enough warmth for the water, if you're not getting it up at that 24, 26, whatever temperature you prefer, what you can do is you can run multiple coils and then just cut that MDF twice and make sure you've got, a nice gap between the two cables. So effectively you would have it running down the one side and then down the other side like that on the shelf. Okay, and you'd have MDF on the one side and MDF on the other side holding it in place. All right, so those are the two methods. What I do is if you've got multiples and you've got the heating going across underneath multiples of these tubs, I then make use of, so what I use is the Easy Stat thermostat from Reptile One. And it can do a maximum of 400 watts. So, don't have to worry that you're going to be putting too much strain on the thermostat. And then the probe then just goes into the first tub and you just set your temperature. What I would do as well is I would make sure that, set it all up. If you're using the heating method, test it, make sure it's all working, you're getting the temperature you want. There's enough breathing in between the tubs for the heating as well, so you don't build up any hot spots because you don't want to start a fire. All right, so that's from a heating point of view. Now, let's get on to the interesting stuff. Let's get on to the experiment that we did. So if you have a look at this video, which I'll just insert here, which is a top view of this container. And as you can see, so this has been running for about 12 weeks. At the bottom of it, you can see there's some decayed Indian almond leaves. You can see all the floating plants on the top. And that's it. And this has been used now for probably 12 weeks, maybe even a little bit longer. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull out some of these so we can see what they're like. We're going to check the water and see what the water is like. Excuse me. Right. Now, you're doing this with me for the first time. I haven't caught any of these guys out here. I don't know, what they look like. I don't know what their size is. So we'll grab some water. The other thing is, when using tubs like this, and if you want to use it to raise them, I would also say that, it's just keep an eye on the numbers that you've got in the tub. I mean, if you've got hundreds of betta babies in a tub, and you're going to do what I've done, where I've purely fed Infosorium, microworm, brine shrimp. I fed brine shrimp through to a fair size, and when they got to a fair size, I then started feeding frozen brine shrimp. In the tubs, I don't feed any dry foods. I just feed, when they get bigger to this size, I just feed frozen brine shrimp. And quite honestly, I believe I could comfortably keep them in here still for a while, which I'm going to do. Put them back on the shelf and leave them in this tub for a few more weeks and see how it goes. All right. Now, if you look at the water's a little bit brownish in color from the tannins. I have done no water changes in 12 weeks on this tub. I have not added any filtration to this. All I've done is I've fed, and that's it. Other than that, I've just left it. So let's see what we've got in here. All right, now to try and catch some. I'm trying to see ones that have got a bit of color on them. Oh, it doesn't help when you throw both out. Okay, this looks like this could possibly end up being a little male. So let's have a look. All right. So I don't know if you can, or if that's going to show up clearly in the camera. what we might do is let's put a couple more in here. And you know, look, they really seem to be doing well. No issues at all. Let's move some of the plants out of the way. Let's grab a little scoop, some more of them. Okay, we'll grab these out for now and let's have a look at them. They really seem to be doing well. So I'm quite pleased with this little experiment. They're growing well. I'm definitely not overfeeding them, and that's the only thing I would say in the tubs. Just be cautious. Don't overfeed. You know, rather underfeed slightly, because you've got no filtration and nothing other than the plants helping you with your water. The other thing I thought we'd do is just let's have a quick look at the pH. So I calibrated the pH meeting as well earlier today, just to make sure that we get a good reading. I've got no idea what the pH of this water is, and I've also got no idea what the temperature is, and we'll get both of those now. So, oh, that's interesting. Okay, so the pH in here is 5.5 and the temperature is 22 degrees. So, hopefully you can see that. pH 5.5, temperature 22 degrees. Okay. All right. So that's it. I just wanted to share with you, you know, how I go about breeding the bettas in tubs, and how that's worked. Just share with you this little experiment on seeing how far we can take them, just purely in a tub from spawn through to what size. I'm going to leave them in here still for a while. They're looking really good. I mean, there's a lot of waste and broken down, you know, parts of the Indian almond leaf at the bottom and so forth. There's algae on the side. I'm sure there's ample bacteria in here as well, but they all seem to be doing really well. So I'm not going to move them into anything else, anything bigger. I'm just going to leave them in here for a few more weeks and keep feeding them and see how they go. All right, let me just make sure I've covered everything. I've spoken about heating, first foods, what to use for the bubble nests, and the specifications around this particular tub. So, you know, if space is an issue and you don't have a lot of space and you want to try and give bettas a go, you know, if you've got, you don't even need to put it on a shelf. You know, if you've got space on the floor underneath a shelf or something where you've got some tanks and you've got space underneath and you want to maybe give it a go there, absolutely use something like these. I do though cover all of my tubs. I just cover it with a piece of acrylic. And I cover for two reasons. One is to prevent them from jumping out. The other reason is that when the fry are born, my view is that you want to try and keep the temperature of the water and the air above it the same, because when they take little gulps of air, you don't want that air above the water to be a lot colder or a lot cooler, and that is bad for them. So I try and make sure that I keep it covered for that reason as well. All right, guys, once again, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for watching the video. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Upcoming, I've still got some projects that I need to share with you. The other one is I've just recently built, this weekend, built an internal box filter that hangs on the inside of the aquarium that you can shift and move from an aquarium to aquarium as you need them. And I'll share that project with you as well. And that makes use of the same uplift method that we use in the Madden filters. All right, guys, have an awesome week. Keep safe. Enjoy the fish breeding. Enjoy making stuff. I appreciate all the comments. Till next time, Urban Fish out.